You have one precious life. How will you make your money work for you? It's time for Sage Money Conversations, where your financial happiness and confidence are always the subject. Here's your host, certified financial planner, Barbara Norman.
Hello and welcome to Sage Money Conversations. I'm your host, Barbara Norman. Today we have a really special guest, Kate Butler. Kate is the TV host of Where All Things Are Popular. It's a wildly popular show. It streams on the RVN Channel on ROKU. She's a best-selling author, publisher, a fabulous public speaker, and she's also a coach. What I love about Kate is she talks about how you can expect a miracle to unfold in your life every day. So at Sage Path Solutions, we think it's important to incorporate fun and passion into your financial plan. And I'm bringing you this episode because I want us all to start thinking bigger. What more can we get out of life? How can we find our passion and run and follow it? And so with that, today we have Kate Butler to tell us how.
Yeah. So thank you, Barbara. I appreciate that. And I love this conversation because it was really this pivotal question in my life that changed my trajectory forever. I was in a position at a very young age where I was making a lot of money. I came out of college, making six figures. By the time I was 25 years old, I was running a multi-million-dollar office in Southern California. And then all of a sudden I took over multiple offices. And then I was all over, on both coasts, right? And what ended up happening was I was checking off all of the boxes along the way. And I thought to myself, okay, what are these things that I want to create in my life? This is the question that, of course, most of us are asking ourselves. What are my goals? What do I want to create? What do I want to do? So I had this thriving career and I went on to get married, and then I started to have children. And what happened once I really kind of was forced to take a step back through having my first child, and this was just a time where I was a new mom. Everything was new to me. I was having to learn all over again, right? Like, who am I in this, right? And when I was really dreaming for my kid, or when I was looking at my first child, Bella, I started to, at nighttime, tell her these bedtime stories, right? And it was all the things that I wanted for her life, all the things that I knew she was capable of, right? Like, if we've ever had this love for someone else in our life, whether it be a little in our life or a partner in our life or a best friend or whoever it is, right? It's like I know you can relate to this, where you can look at that person and you can see their potential. And sometimes you have belief in them that they don't even have for themselves, right? And so I was looking at Bella and I could see this extraordinary potential. And I would go on to fantasize about all of the things that she could do for her life. And it hit me one night as I was doing this and talking to her about this and doing this storytelling with her. Wow, you know that she is capable of all of this and she has this unlimited potential, but are you actually showing up for that for your own life? Wow. And that was the question that began to change everything for me, because I thought to myself, how can I expect her to really show up for her purpose, to really go after her dreams, to really create perhaps a legacy at some point, if I am not showing her the way? So at that point, I had to step up and start to say, let me really look at this. Is this really how I want to be remembered? Is this really what I want to show her? Is this really, me going after life, like really taking a bite out of it, really showing up every single day, really going after my dreams? And even if I fail miserably, at least she will see that I have tried. She'll see what it's like to go after it. And that is when things started to change for me. That's when I started to write books. That is when I started to take a different path. And I really started to connect into what my life purpose was. And this was 12 years ago now, and what I then ended up creating a business around. And so I love this topic of legacy because, like I said, this question has changed it all for me.
That's amazing. I love that story. And you're right about kids. I just love looking at them and you can just see, you actually can. So roll the clock forward. We've had kids, we've done life. And I think a lot of people just get in the habit of putting one foot in front of the other. And so if we had to kind of reignite our lives and live on tension, Where would you coach people into starting that process? Like, how do we just kind of fire things back up again?
Yeah. So I'll be honest with you, when I had this epiphany, if you will, I didn't have any idea where that was going to lead me. I thought to myself, I owned and operated a staffing and recruiting company at the time. And so I had left corporate America, started my own company. And I asked myself, like, am I put on this earth to do this? Like, is this literally what my sole purpose is, to do this work in the world? And I liked it to an extent, but I had done it for 13 years at that point. And I went, no, it's not the entire reason. I think that I learned so much from that. I built a beautiful business foundation. I learned a ton about sales and marketing. I made a tremendous income from it. There was so much that I was grateful for, but when I was really digging deep, I had to be truthful with myself that I thought there was more for me. And that was tough for me. That was really tough for me because I felt so guilty for wanting more. I thought, well, you have these healthy kids, right? You have you can pay your mortgage, right? And, I love my husband, a nice marriage, right? And I thought, well, what, come on, what more do you want, right? There's so many people out there that are struggling in different ways. And not that I wasn't, I didn't have troubles or struggles. Of course we all do, but for the most part, I felt guilty for wanting more than I already had, almost like I was being ungrateful for this life I had created. So I had to come to terms with the fact that I could be grateful for what I had, but I could still want more. And guess what? When we stop growing, that's not a good place to be, right? I mean, the second we stop growing, we're done.
That is an excellent point. I love that because, if we look at it as guilt versus stopping growth, that's a huge pivotal aha moment.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And once I came into alignment with the fact that this isn't about being greedy, this is about growing further into who we are. That's when I started to be able to say, okay, I can begin to grow into who I am. So you asked me, where did I start? And I just wanted to be honest with the fact that I didn't have this grandiose plan. Like I didn't have this 10-year, beautiful, clear vision and step into it and say, here's now my life, right? It was very messy. And I had no idea in the beginning. I just did, though, have this true burning desire in my belly, deep down in my belly, that wanted more. And I knew deep down I was capable of more. Didn't know what more meant, but I knew that there was this fire that needed to be ignited, to your point. And so the first thing that I did was begin to get into action about it. So I started to ask the questions. What would you prefer? That is the most important question you can ever ask yourself, right? Don't focus on what we don't have, right? Don't focus on, feeling the guilt, right? Don't focus on those emotions that are, weighing us down. Instead, just ask the simple question, what would I prefer? So I started to say, look, if I could clear my desk off, right? And if I could start over, what would I show up and do for work, for life, for myself, for my kids, for my family? What would it be? And I thought to myself, I've always looked at life a little differently than most people. I'd be the kid in my room, like making dream books before I even knew vision boards existed, or before that was even mainstream language. Like I was creating these dream books and setting goals. And I thought, I've always been a little bit, out there when it came to that kind of thing. I've always been a really big dreamer. So I said, I'd really like to share with my children the way that I see the world, right? If I could do anything, I would love to do that. So I started to put into words what I would want to share with my kids in a language that children can understand. And as I got into action around this, then all of a sudden the creativity started to be ignited, the ideas were ignited, and the resources began to be ignited, right? Things started showing up, not just in imagination, but in physical form. And that is what happens when we get into action. And before I knew it, right, I had created this first children's book called More Than Mud. And that's where it began.
More Than Mud?
More Than Mud, making money moments magical. Yep.
Oh, okay. So talk about when you got the vision of it and things started showing up. Is it because you started sharing it with other people and people showed up for you? Or was it just this magical process that things showed up?
It's both. It's both, right? So things show up in the way of ideas. things show up in the way of imagination. Things show up in the way of, what people like to refer to as like the mini miracles, but I don't think miracles are big or small. I think that they are all so beautifully serendipitous that the small things create the big things, and we can't appreciate the big things without the small things, right? So they all have an even playing field wherever I am concerned, right? But these beautiful serendipitous events where, I'm like, oh, I could really use an editor. And the next thing I'm at Starbucks and the person in front of me in line happens to be an editor. And there you go. It's a perfect match, right? Happens all the time, right? And so I started to pay attention. I started to focus on what I'll call those miracles that began to show up in my life, and what we focus on grows, of course. So when I began to really pour into the acknowledgement of these beautiful miracles that began to unfold, more of them began to come. So was it an idea? Oh, I could turn this into a book. Oh, well, I need an illustrator. Where am I going to find an illustrator? Well, actually, I met someone who is an artist. So then all of a sudden I'll reach out. And then the next thing I know, she's introducing me to someone else. So it will come in an idea. It'll come in a non-physical form or a magical way, perhaps, but it'll also show up in real life things if we're paying attention. It'll show up in a person, in an email, in a text, in a Facebook message, in an introduction. It can also show up in real physical ways. So I think it's both.
So what I'm hearing you saying is you're really paying attention. You're being mindful to what not only the dream is, but the things that get put in front of you miraculously.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I know this now to be, being very intentional, right? I didn't have that language then. It was new to me. I was learning through the process, but I was understanding that when I directed my focus towards these things that really lit me up inside, things happened at lightning speed. Wow. When I was focusing on things that did not light me up inside, I felt like I was stuck in the mud. I felt like I was pushing a huge boulder uphill. Was my company making lots of money? Absolutely. Did I feel like I was carrying 500 pounds on my back every single day? Absolutely. Right. So we can make things happen. You work hard, you can make anything happen. But what I started to ask myself was, like, what I'm pushing, right? Or what I'm making happen, or what I'm forcing, like, is this really what I want? Because it's not making me feel great. So what if I redirected and started to put that energy towards things that do light me up inside? And then all of a sudden things started to expand at exponential speed, right? And this is this magical, space that you're talking about.
Did people think you were nuts? Like you had this wonderfully productive company that's making a lot of money. I mean, what did your husband say? What did your parents say? What did your friends say?
Yeah, well, my husband's an engineer, so he likes proof. And he was definitely skeptical at first. So it was interesting because we sat down in the beginning, and as I started to say, wow, this could really be something, first started with like, I really feel called to do this. Like, I don't know why, I don't know how it's going to happen. And we didn't so, when they say you grow under your mortgage, right? So we were both making good, but we had just bought a new house. We were definitely not in a position with these brand new babies at the time and this new house and this, life that we were growing into. We didn't have all this money to just be throwing all over the place. Right. So, it's a little bit of, all right, well, I have this dream and I feel really called to do it. And sorry, but I'm kind of going for it. Right. So my husband was supportive, but right. It was a little challenging at first. So I said, let's sit down and kind of make some goals, or maybe a vision board, if you will. It was something along those lines without getting into too much detail around it. And I said, this is what I see unfolding. And as things started to show up, right, it was one thing after another, after another, after another. And it was like 3 months we did a benchmark check. And then 6 months we did a bench. And finally he was like, okay, so much of what you are saying is actually coming true, is actually showing up. And this was not just, magical things. This was money. This was clients. This was success, right? He started to say, I get it. Like, I see it and I understand it. So even when I can't understand it quite or see it quite in the beginning, now moving forward, I will trust that if you feel in alignment with it, it's going to unfold, right? And it's probably going to be better than we even expected. So it took him seeing the proof to believe it, which is for most people. But I understood, right, that if I feel it, I feel in alignment with it, it's going to unfold. It's going to unfold quicker, and it's going to be better than we ever could have imagined. So he had to borrow that belief for a little while. Eventually he caught up. Now we're on the same page, right?
He sounds like an amazing supportive person. How lucky. Okay, so Kate, not every day went great. When things got discouraging, what did you do to get yourself back on track?
Here's something I'll say is that the best thing that we can do when we are there's a lot. I mean, there's I have like a 5-minute energy switch that I do, and I do these really practical things. But the one major thing that anyone can do when they are feeling out of alignment, when they're feeling in a rut, when they're feeling like they're a little off, the best thing you can do is help someone else. That is the absolute best thing that you can do. People wonder what, you have no idea how you're going to react in a crisis situation or something like that. Right. And I'll never forget, my daughter came in and she had to get 7 stitches in her head. And I looked at her, right. And I'm like, at first I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm freaking out. I'm worrying about not myself per se, but the situation. But the second I switched and went into action of, we got to clean this up, we got to get her the doctor, all of a sudden, all of my worry went away because I'm directing my focus to helping her. And then it was about her. It was about helping. It was about supporting. It was about being available for her. And everything else went away. The fear went away. And then it came back later when I'm like, oh my God, what did we just go through? But in the moment, that's why that happens. Now that's an extreme case, but even on a daily basis, if we can switch and get outside of ourselves and focus on helping someone else, send someone a nice text, send someone a call, snail mail, send someone a card, brighten their day, right? It will come back to you tenfold. It will come back to you tenfold. And you don't do it for that purpose, right? But it does work. It does work. And here you are putting this light out into the world with this light that we all have, right? And it helps get us out of ourselves, out of our own way, and back into a place where we can be open to receiving. So that's one of the best things we can do.
Like paying it forward. I love that. Yeah. Next question. And I think a lot of us suffer from imposter syndrome. Like, who am I to have this dream? Who am I to think I can do X, Y, or Z? How would you coach someone out of imposter syndrome and believing, no, I am worth this. I can do this?
God, that's a really hard question for me because I just am so far from that space that I can't imagine anyone would think that about themselves. But I do understand the question. I go back to 2 things, the Marianne Williamson quote, right? Which is, who are you not to? Who are you to not do that? Who are you to not live that dream? And I'm of course paraphrasing, but who are you to not step into that dream? The Bob Proctor quote, and again, I'm paraphrasing, where he would say, if you understood the amount of energy you had in your one single pinky finger, the amount of power that you had just in your pinky, the power that you have just in your pinky could light up all of New York City, right? If you just understood, and the last thing I'll say is that God didn't forget you, right? Every single person is here for a reason. Every single person is here for a reason. God did not forget you. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. So it's your job to figure that out. You were born with the roadmap, but you have to actually open up the map and figure it out. Okay. Yes. So it's really a disservice if you do not open up the map and start walking. And that's why I say get into action, right? And that's why I also say I live so far from that space, because I don't buy into it. I do not subscribe to it. I think it's a cop-out. When people say, I don't know if I could do that. It's stop it. Okay. It's a complete cop-out. You absolutely know that you're capable of it. If you are honest with yourself, like I was in that room that day, if I'm getting honest with myself, you know what? There's more for me. Do I feel guilty about it? Absolutely. Do I need to figure out how to overcome that? Absolutely. But if I'm being honest with myself, I know there's more and I know I need to continue to grow. So I think people need to start getting honest, no more cop-outs, open up the map, start getting into action, and it will unfold, right?
It will. It definitely will.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, because you've got so much beautiful energy and so much drive. It's great. You just mentioned something, and I want to know more. It was the 5-minute energy switch. What does that look like?
Yeah. So I do, affirmations. I do a quick meditation and intention setting, focus on my goal of the day. And like all of this basically takes 5 minutes, right? Where if I am, let's say, in a slump, right? Or, when people, kind of tweak your energy a little bit, right? Like you didn't expect an email to come through and you're like, oh, that really set me off, right? You can kind of do a couple of things to get yourself back on track. What is my focus of the day? What would I prefer? What am I a yes for today? Right? Like, what are you available for? People say like, nobody can make you feel a certain way. Like you have to allow that in, right? But sometimes it does hit you and you're blindsided, right? So if it came in, you're like, okay, got it. Like now I'm a little bit off. How do I get back? So I am only available, right, for positive energy. I'm only available for successful conversations today. I am only available for, high vibe support friends. Like I'm only available for positive conversation. I am only available for miracles. I am open to all of the miracles that the universe has available for me today, right? I am a yes for a new client. I am a yes for unexpected income. I am a yes for a love in my life. If you're looking for a relationship, like whatever it is, right? I'm available for fun this Friday night, right? What are you available for? What are you a yes for? So you can just start to ask these very simple questions. And all of a sudden you've gotten yourself into a new place. You cannot think a negative thought and a positive thought at the same time. It's actually impossible. So it depends. What do you want to do, right? Like it's every second is a choice. So if you want to switch your energy, whatever you're thinking about, right, is having you in that place of that, let's just call it negative energy. So you just have to do a couple of things to get your mind into a place where you're thinking about something else. And you cannot think those same thoughts at the same time, right? Just like smiling.
Right.
You turn up the corners of your face, right? Like you can't actually feel upset when you smile. So just little things.
Little things. Those are all great. You're making me think of Sean Akers' book, The Happiness Advantage.
Oh, I don't know that one. Okay.
Oh my gosh. It's a great book, but he talks about how happiness, you live longer, but you're more productive at work. And they did these short exercises, like just Google what a great company to work, right? They've got dog sitters and massage therapists and free cafeterias. They've got all these wonderful benefits. And so they did the study in Google and they did 2 minutes of just stopping and being grateful. And actually the productivity at Google went up. People weren't complaining that sushi lines on a Friday. I mean, it was huge what just 2 minutes a day did.
Yep,
so
absolutely.
It made me think of that.
Absolutely.
This has been such a fun and wonderful conversation. If you could give any one little tidbit to someone who is getting started on this journey, what would you say to that person?
I would just say to spend some time each day, each morning, preferably being quiet, being still. And that is where you open up your roadmap to your life mission, your purpose, your path here, if you will. And so when you're still, it can come, right? The awareness can come, the answers can come. The ideas can come. We don't forget to charge our phones every night. And if we do, we know it.
Right?
We totally know it, right? Yeah. So we don't forget to charge our laptops and our computers and our phones. So I always say, like, let's not forget to recharge ourselves. Okay. And that plug in each morning of recharging yourself, even if it's, like you said, 2 minutes, even if it's just for a couple of minutes, that will really make a tremendous difference in your awareness and then what comes after that.
That's beautiful. Kate, we want more of you. So where do we find your books? How do we find Kate Butler? Tell us where we can learn more.
Absolutely. My website, katebutlerbooks.com, is really the best place. You can reach out to my team there if you have any questions. And also you can really learn about being part of our Inspired Impact community.
Oh, tell us about that.
Yeah, this is just a place where we really provide a platform and a space for people to come and share their stories, write a book, becoming #1 best-selling author through writing a chapter in a book without having to write the entire book. So as you know, my journey really started and really expanded through my first book. And then I went on to write several other #1 best-selling books after that. I have now published over 400 #1 best-selling authors. Many of them are also #1 international best-selling authors. But what I've done is, in addition to writing my own books, I have now created a program and the space for people to come in. We help them identify their story, write their story. We publish it. We do all of the marketing for you. We create, the #1 bestseller, but you're also part of the process, right? So it's a beautiful journey for someone who wants to leave a legacy, who wants to share their story, who wants to create a platform, who wants to get their message out into the world, somebody who really feels like there is more, right, for them. This is a beautiful, beautiful place to start. And it's where I started. So that's why I created this, because I wanted to other people to have a way to do this as well. So you can find all of that there on my website at katebutlerbooks.com.
That's awesome. Kate, I can't thank you enough for the time. I'm just so energized and happy right now. I can't wait to go out and do some of this stuff. So thank you so much for your time and everything that you brought to the table. You are a gift to our listeners.
Thank you so much, Barbara. It's been such a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Advisory services are offered through Barbara J. Norman, LLC, an investment advisor in the states of California and Texas. The information contained herein should in no way be construed or interpreted as a solicitation to sell, nor an offer to sell advisory services to any residents of any state other than the state of California, or where otherwise legally permitted. All content is for information purposes only. It is not intended to provide any tax or legal advice or provide the basis for any financial decisions. The information contained in this material has been derived from sources believed to be reliable, but is not guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness and does not purport to be complete analysis of the materials discussed. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of SagePath Solutions and are subject to change without notice.